Growing up, there was a never-ending argument about which Ninja Turtles game was the best. The side-scrolling platforming of the first one, the arcade adaptation of the second, or the next generation Turtles in Time. However, there was always one turtle game that is consistently left out of that conversation. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project for the NES. It took the formula of the second game in the series and improved upon it in nearly every single way. But why was it, and still is, consistently excluded from this conversation? Today, let's look at the history behind this game and exactly why it's truly a forgotten classic. But before we get too far into that, welcome to Ogle's channel. Thank you so much for watching today. If you haven't already clicked that subscribe button down below, be sure and do that now for your latest in gaming news, reviews, content, and a few other things that we throw in from here and there. But let's get back to why the Manhattan Project is truly a forgotten classic. To understand the history of the Manhattan Project, we must first look at Turtles in Time. Turtles in Time released worldwide in March of 1991 for the arcade and was a massive hit. Naturally, Konami wanted to bring this over for the home audience, and since the SNES was already out in Japan, it only made sense to start porting the game to a system that could handle the sprites and the processing of the arcade version. However, while development for the SNES was a core priority, there was already a team at Konami that had begun working on a different Turtles game that would eventually become the Manhattan Project on the NES. There was no need to scrap this project though in favor of the new one, because the team working on this was specifically assigned to work on projects for older hardware, probably just to take advantage of the still active NES player base. Since these two projects were in such close development to each other, it's no wonder they began to shape up to have such close release dates as well. Turtles 3 The Manhattan Project got a release date of just 6 months before Turtles 4 Turtles in Time. Because they were so close to each other, Konami took their marketing budget and spent it nearly exclusively toward marketing Turtles in Time, giving it TV commercials, magazine ads, and even choosing only to localize Turtles in Time in Europe instead of doing both games. This part especially hurt the Manhattan Project. The close release dates though regulated nearly all the funds and marketing being put toward what they predicted would be the bigger money maker. This left Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project, forgotten by many players. However, even though this is the forgotten of the 4 main Turtles games, does it mean it is the worst of the 4 Turtles games? Absolutely not. While it may not be as flashy as its successor, this game does improve upon its predecessor in nearly every single way, making it the perfect transition game between the arcade game and Turtles in Time. First off, this game is built upon the same engine as Turtles 2, the arcade game. However, they updated so many things starting with the game intro itself. While Turtles 2 started with literally just a title screen, the Manhattan Project starts straight out the gate with the animated intro with the theme song blasting. All of these main Turtles games strive to make you feel like you were in the show, and there's no better way to accomplish this than kick the game off with a theme song and a flashy intro. Then, while I'll admit the story for the game isn't super clever, we actually do get cutscenes and a dialogue to develop the plot for the game. Basically, Shredder kidnaps April, rips Manhattan Island off of the world, and creates a floating fortress. Then every level continues that storyline until you finally encounter and defeat Shredder. Like I said, the story isn't crazy or anything, but it's a step up from the arcade game for sure. But the biggest upgrade comes from the gameplay. When the game starts up, you immediately notice the gameplay is significantly improved over the arcade game. You still have the same basic attacks, but now every turtle is equipped with the ability to toss enemies and to utilize a special move. Leonardo with a spin attack, Raphael with a drill move, Donatello with a forward flip, and Michelangelo with a reverse bounce kick. Seriously, this is my favorite way to end off a boss. Just look at it there. While this immediately added more options from the last game on how to attack, it also brought with it more strategy. Every time you use one of your special attacks, you also sacrifice 1 health bar. This means you have to decide when it's worth it to use these special moves, creating a more strategic type beat 'em up game. The second major upgrade to the gameplay is that every time that you pass out, you can then swap your turtle. This allows you to choose the best turtle for particular levels if you happen to lose a life. I love this ability to swap more often between the turtles because you're not stuck with the same turtle until you have a full game over. While both of these aspects may sound minor, they each significantly make the gameplay more engaging. The arcade game sometimes fell into the monotony trap, but this game is already trying to keep players more involved from the get-go. Another way in which the game engages players more is by adding more variety to the levels themselves. One of the most noticeable changes is they shortened the length of the levels down and added mini bosses such as Slash and huge mousers into them. This keeps the levels from ever getting stale and gives the player that boss thrill more often throughout the game. The levels also added in platform elements too. This is not a huge game changer, but by creating areas for players to dodge enemies or lasers or holes to avoid, created more variety to the game itself. It's like the creators knew that some of the levels in the last game sometimes got a little on the long side and went out of their way to make sure players never got bored this time around. But let's talk about the levels themselves. They are so varied in this game, from being on the beach, to surfing, to fighting on the submarine, to being in the sewer, to being on top of a floating island in the sky, and even fighting in outer space on a spaceship. This game kept every level fresh and exciting and added way more 2.5D elements to make the levels even more immersive too. They also tried to correct a mistake from the last game and make more enemies in the game outside just simply the foot soldiers. However, even with the addition of the rock soldiers and a few drones, the smaller enemies ended up repeating just as much as they did in the last game. Also, I fully expected Triceratons to make an appearance because we journey into outer space and I don't know, they also put one on the cover of the box? However, I can't hate on this too much because I still think this cover is absolutely awesome. But the lack of enemy variety is just a small flaw compared to the many areas that they improved on the gameplay and the level design. While fixing the small gameplay issues of the last game, they also retained all the best aspects of the previous game. The arcade game goes down in history because it was the first time it ever allowed players to feel like they were playing in the cartoon, and this game does not skip a beat when capturing that same feeling. The cartoony graphics are there for all the turtles, the comedy is heightened this time around to match some of the silliness of the cartoon. Like, come on, they knew what they were doing when they put this foot soldier rolling around this ball, or some weird reason they had to carry these giant weights on their head, or why Bebop has a twirly weapon on his head. They wanted to make you laugh. They also added in more cartoon animations for like when you're flattened by these objects or mishaps happen within the environment. They wanted to capture the humor of the cartoon even when it was at the detriment of your winning. But more importantly, they tried to capture once again as many key enemies from the show and movies this time around to make you feel as if you were playing in that universe. We got Leatherhead, Toka, Razor, Crane, Dirtbag, Groundchuck, and of course, Super Shredder 2. The whole idea of the last Turtles game was for you to anticipate which boss was going to be next, and this game did not disappoint. They wanted you to play this game to discover what hidden elements of the Turtles universe was right around that corner. This game succeeded just as much in what made the last Turtles game so great by allowing you to feel like you're in the show every time you pop that cartridge in. They also improved from the last game by allowing for a cheat code to access in easy mode. The last game was so difficult that the vast majority of players never actually beat the game. That being said, they allowed this game to be more accessible to all players, and by doing so, allowed more players to see the cool enemies and the levels that they had created. I don't think the company realizes just how much the younger players thank them for adding in this mode. Overall, the Manhattan Project seriously took almost every complaint that I had in the last Turtles game and fixed it. This is a much more well-designed, more fun, and just an overall better Turtle game than an arcade game. While it doesn't have the flash of Turtles in Time on the SNES, I think the Manhattan Project perfected what a Turtles beat-em-up game could be on the NES. It's a shame this game is so often forgotten about though, because with players holding the arcade game in such high acclaim, I know they would love this game just as much, if not more. But what are your thoughts on the game? Did you get a chance to play this game growing up, or was it a forgotten Turtles game in your household as well? Let me know in the comment section down below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure and like and subscribe to the channel. As always, go out there, find a great game to play, and just simply have a great rest of the day.